Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel, I'm ForClassic and welcome to BenchART. So for today what I do have in here is Mafia 2 Definitive Edition, a game that was initially developed by the 2K exec, the same developers of the first Mafia and obviously Mafia 2. It is now ported by the D3T and also the Vanguard 13, which were, Vanguard 13 were the developers of Mafia 3, which, well, unfortunately it wasn't as good as the first two titles. So this definitive edition on the MX130, you will need to play at 720p using low settings over here. And I'm using 4 times anisotropic filtering. Keep that in mind that despite this game it is at low settings, the graphics fidelity, it still looks really good. So looking to the requirements, you can clearly see that we are below the minimum specs, with the minimum specs being a GTX 660 with 6GB of minimum and an AMD FX or an E5 from the 2000 generation. So we are only below on the graphic card side. So looking to the results that I gathered while playing with 720p low settings, what I got it was overall an experience above 30 frames per second, with an average of 48 frames per second, with a 1% low of 27. These 27 frames per second, or these moments where the game was below 30, only occurred when I was traversing a tunnel from the main city to the outskirts of the city, and this seems pretty common since I also noticed this drop in performance in my other machines. So yeah, it is pretty normal, but honestly it doesn't really affect too much the gameplay, so I will say that this game it is perfectly playable above 30 frames per second. So what about this Mafia 2 Definitive Edition? What does this bring to the table? I mean, what are the improvements? What are the downsides? The downsides, it is obviously more demanding since it contains better graphics overall. The textures received a massive revamp. You might not notice at first, but if you actually install again the old Mafia 2, you will immediately notice the difference in texture quality, especially when you start the chapter 2. There are big differences in especially texture quality, draw distances, shadow quality overall. There are big differences there. The thing is, if you didn't play Mafia 2 for a while, like I would say some years ago, if you don't play Mafia 2 for years ago, probably you will say that this game looks absolutely the same as the original. But that's not really the case. It is really revamped graphically. It is just small stuff. They didn't want to change the graphics too much so that it would be kind of similar to the original experience, but bringing better draw distances and better shadow resolutions and, you know, much better texture quality. So all the things looks better, but not too much different. That's the thing that you should know, and obviously much more demanding than it was on the past. One of the big disappointments for most of the people with this Mafia 2 Definitive Edition, it's that the fact that physics, it is not really in here, at least not in full force, alright? Mafia 2 original game contains a very strong physics API, which had tons of particles going on, and that was in a time where physics were kind of a, you know, big deal for Nvidia, and we had a lot of games out there every year that did contain physics and their advantages for Nvidia owners. What happens really is that physics, it is not in here, at least on the GPU form. If you run the benchmark of the game, you can see that defects and the DLLs are still there, alright, because on the benchmark tool there is physics all over the place, although on the regular game there is no physics, there is no cloth animation, mostly for your character. There are, although for some characters there are some cloth animation though, but it's nothing too, you know, the simulation is nothing too serious, alright, there isn't really too much physics in this game. Alright, for example, all the particles when the car did explode all over the air, all the glass and all the particles from the glass all over the floor, and when you had a Tommy gun, if you shoot a wall, there were particles everywhere. No, this is not available on this Definitive Edition, and I know that people are freaking out with this. I do understand why this game doesn't contain physics, because physics was abandoned, at least on the GPU form. I mean, on the CPU form, physics it is used in pretty much every engine nowadays, but the ancient physics for the GPU, which was renamed to Apex, it was discontinued some years ago, and it no longer receives support from Nvidia. And actually, if you go play now the original with newer graphic cards, you will see that there are a ton of issues related with physics. So I believe that MX130 or the D3T decided to remove physics because it would bring a lot of issues, and even if they wanted to fix those issues, the support was abandoned. So I believe they couldn't do anything aside from just removing physics. Like I did told you, I know this is a big deal for most people, but I do understand why they did remove it. And well, that's quite unfortunate, but as soon as the software it is unsupported, there is nothing you can do about it. Also, not only that, alright, the Definitive Edition costs 30 bucks on Steam. I think it's kind of a cash grab, honestly, because right now you can't buy the Classic Edition, you can only buy this Definitive Edition, and obviously since they are selling a remaster game, it is now more expensive. And if you are asking yourself like something like, I play the original, should I play the remaster? Honestly, I don't think so, because like I did told you, this doesn't really change too much stuff. And I believe because of that, MX130 was and 2K were smart enough, because they saw nobody's going to replay this, nobody's going to pay 30 bucks again for this game that barely looks any different from the original. And so, because of that, they decide to offer the Mafia 2 Definitive Edition to previous owners of Mafia 2. Which means that if you have Mafia 2 on your Steam account, you will notice that your Mafia 2, it is now Mafia 2 Classic, and you have now the Mafia 2 Definitive Edition, which is this remaster over here. And if you didn't add all the DLCs of the game, you now have all the DLCs. You have all the free DLCs that were launched for Mafia 2 available to you with no extra costs, even if you didn't add those DLCs. So this is a nice gift. This also applies for Mafia 3. For example, I had Mafia 3 on my Steam account, and right now what I have is Mafia 3 Definitive Edition with all the DLCs. I didn't brought the DLCs before, but right now with the Definitive Edition I have access to all DLCs for free. So it is a nice gift. But right now what I'm really interested to know is about the Mafia 1 remake. That one, it will be an excellent title, at least I do hope so, but I'm trying to keep my hopes down since MX130 will be responsible for the remake of the first Mafia, and honestly, the work that they have done with Mafia 3, it wasn't really that great. And Mafia 1, it is a great classic, it is one of my favorite games of all times. It was a game when I was a kid, it was an excellent game, like GTA for example. It was really touching game for me, and if you are going to destroy what it was Mafia 1, I'm very skeptical what they are going to do to the game, alright? So guys, I think that's all that I want to talk about Mafia 2 Definitive Edition. Hope you keep enjoying the rest of the video, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
He's a good guy to know. He's a little grouchy, but he's always got a scam going. He deals with stolen cars mostly. Spent some time inside a while back. I heard he used to stick up gas stations back in the day.
You gonna make him pay the cleaning bill for your jacket?
Nah, I'll let that one slide. I do a lot of business with the guy. Plus, he's got one hell of a temper. One time we was at the track and some mick spilled a beer on his wind ticket. Mike beat the shit out of him till he went blind in one eye. For a lousy $10. You believe that shit?
Sounds like kind of a scumbag.
Hey, you just gotta know how to handle these people. And Mike's a pussycat compared to some of the guys I...
Hey, is there a safe place to park around here? I don't want to leave this thing out in the street.
Yeah, that's why you're parking your car next to mine in the garage. The streets are full of criminals these days.
Yeah, the neighborhood ain't what it used to be, huh?
If you're hungry, there's some food in the refrigerator. You hungry, Vito? Take whatever you want from the fridge.